This video found you because you are fearing something, because you are waiting to take that next step in your transformational process. And I'm going to explain to you my experience with dealing with people's transformational processes. It was my job for 8 years to develop group fitness instructors to be able to execute 45-minute long, high-intensity workouts. They had to be able to motivate, they had to be fit enough to do the class, they had to be able to juggle with light music, as well as counting down the beats of music and instructing people on the next movement to do for 45 minutes long. In order to do this job, you have to have a crazy amount of multitasking ability, critical thinking ability, as well as an insanely powerful self-image. When people start out doing this job, they don't feel like they have a strong enough self-image, or they have too many self-limiting beliefs in the way in order to execute the job. And it was my job to remove these limits people had in order to execute the job properly, in order to grow the business that I was working at. I was the head coach, and I lived in a part of the world where people don't really feel like they have the ability to express themselves too much. I lived in Asia. And in Asian culture, it's not such a big thing to be able to express yourself as you want. It's not such a huge thing to be an individual. It's not such a big thing to be, going out against the grain, doing things the way you want, and really feeling like you're the main character. And so in a place like this, I had to help develop people's main character energy. In this part of the world, people didn't necessarily feel like they were able to express themselves in the way they could. And it was my job to show them how to do it. And so what I began with doing, without sort of realizing it, was trying to break this understanding they had of themselves. Basically, you have a self-image, which is a perception that you have of yourself and your capabilities. And sometimes you will tell to yourself, I can't do something, or I can do something. I'm capable of driving a car, but I'm not capable of giving a public speech in front of 1,000 people. I'm able to do a maths test easily, but I'm not able to do a English test easily. And so we all have different perceptions of ourselves, but our self-image is ultimately the thing that makes us feel like we can do anything, okay? And so when I had to develop this thing with people, first of all, it took looking at your self-image and then breaking it in half, because that image that you have of yourself, it does no justice to you, okay? You have to break that in half so that you can multiply, okay, how much you believe in yourself. You have to experience difficult things, okay? Put yourself in the deep water so that you learn how to swim. And so this is what I began to do with people. I could see an insane amount of fear, not only when I was doing the training, but at the beginning when I did the auditions. And auditions were something where I would have 20 people come into a room and they would all do a song, or they would all do one song of instructing for me to show me what they could do or how they could express themselves. And I was never looking for something perfect. I was never, because people would come in and they would have no idea how to do the job, but I was looking for expression. I was looking for the person who's not afraid of making mistakes. I was looking at the person who's not afraid of expressing themselves, being super loud, has good voice projection, because that would be more easy to train than someone who has a very poor self-image and someone who sort of obsesses over the way they are, meaning they obsess with feeling they need to stay in their comfort zone all the time, because it's very hard to get someone out of their comfort zone, but it's really easy to direct sort of a high vibrational energy and just make it do something else. So if you can already scream loud, okay, but scream loud and instruct people in this way. But to have to train that, it was always something very difficult, but it was something very common in the place where I was living. Now, most of the training when you become a group fitness instructor is dealing with stress, because imagine you have about 50 people looking at you all the time. They're staring at you and they're sort of just like, train me. I don't want to have to think about the workout. You lead the way. And they are giving you the authority to lead them. And if you're not the kind of person who can take that authority and say, hey, look, I'm in charge. This is what we're doing. Follow me. Okay? Then what happens is people are going to look at you like, if you're not leading them properly, they're going to ask, why are you not leading me properly? I paid for this. And if you're not doing it properly, it's going to make you feel more stressed about yourself. And if you have a bad class, it's going to make you doubt your abilities. And it's going to give you more fear. And so what I would train people to do is deal with this fear that they had, deal with this lack of authority to take charge of whatever they were doing. Ultimately, it was learning how to beat fear. I have one philosophy that I was taught my entire life by my father about beating fear. He said, you beat fear with more fear. And what he meant by this was, if you have a fear of public speaking, you have to raise that fear with a higher fear. Meaning, let's say you're at a bar and you're afraid to ask a girl out on a date. You don't know her, she's standing right at the bar, but you're afraid to make that first move because you're afraid of rejection. Well, that's a very natural fear, but you can also raise that fear with another fear of, let's say, if you don't ask that girl out, your friends are going to make fun of you. And so the fear I have of my friends making fun of me is worse than the fear I have of asking that girl out and potentially getting rejected. And so I do it anyway, and I beat fear with more fear. Now, some could say, why live in a state of fear all the time? Because I don't want to be in a state of fear. Well, you don't get to choose if you're in a state of fear at all. You will discover fears whenever you try to transform yourself, whenever you try to do something new, whenever you try to get out of your comfort zone. And yes, you can mask it, you can pretend you're not scared, but ultimately you will know this. And you will know what you're afraid of. You will know what you have resistance to overcoming. You know it, okay? No one else knows it because you can put up a mask and you can fake it, but you know what you're afraid of. And so you know, or you could possibly relate to that story of asking someone out. If you're afraid of rejection, if you're afraid of being judged, if you're afraid of not receiving any love, literally anything, you have to raise that fear with more fear. My father used to say, you want to raise the highest fear. Let's say the highest fear in this life is the fear of death. Well, how could you raise that fear to do, let's say, the right thing, or do the honorable thing, or do the thing that you know is good for the world, but you're afraid of death? Well, you could raise that fear with, let's say, the fear of God, the fear of the afterlife. That's one example. Because if you had a greater fear of God than you had of death, then you would fear the judgment he had if you didn't act in a just way, in an honorable way, in a noble way. And so if you have a greater fear of God, then death, really doesn't matter, because if you know you're doing the honorable thing, you know that you'll be judged well. And so this comes down to your conscience, but let's get back to the task at hand. If you want to seriously improve the way you deal with fear, you have to raise that fear with another fear. Let's say you're about to start this fresh new business. You're about to embark on the journey of your life. You're about to create $1 million. You can see the pathway there, but you know it's going to take about 2 years to 3 years, let's say, for example. And you have a lot of resistance to embarking on that journey because you know it's going to be stressful, it's going to be tiring, it's going to be stressful, it's not going to go the way you planned, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of sort of roadblocks and obstacles along the way. But you know that this is going to lead to the life that you want to live, an abundance of money, a schedule where you don't have to force yourself to get up every single day. You can work whenever you want. And this is the dream life that you want to live. But you know it's going to take 3 years. But you have a fear of embarking on that because you fear you're going to fail. You fear it's going to be too much. You fear it's going to overwhelm you. But then you have a greater fear. You have the fear if you do nothing. You have the fear if you just stay in the exact same place with the exact same people, doing the exact same thing for the rest of your life, which, yes, it will be very comfortable now, but it's certainly going to lead to a life of regret because you have the option of making that decision right now to change everything. And so you have to ask yourself right now, am I fearing the journey ahead of me, or am I fearing failing? Am I not fearing staying in the same place enough because I can't really visualize what it's going to be like in about 20 years when I look back on my life and I say, damn, I wish I had tried that one thing that I didn't try. I wish I had done it. Well, it's too late now. Now you're going to be living a life of, I wish I had, instead of saying, I did it. I did the difficult thing right now. I overcame fear. I beat it. And I transformed my life the way I wanted to do it. Well, this is where you have to measure the fears that you have in your life. Wherever you have fear of rejection, whether you have fear of loss, whether you have fear of judgment by others, you have to learn how to raise that fear with another fear, okay? And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to live your life scared or anxious, constantly in fear. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that momentarily, when you have the fear of the path being ahead of you, okay, and the path is unknown, we don't know what's going to happen along this path, and it's scary. In that moment, you can make the decision to say, yes, the path ahead is scary, it's unknown, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. However, I fear not doing anything at all, more than going along this unknown journey. And so I choose to take that journey and go straight ahead, all right? This is something that I would have to tell people how to do when they were becoming instructors, because when you get up on stage, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful. You're going to get up on stage and you're not going to know what you're going to say. Every plan that you have, every bit of instruction that you're going to give them is going to go out the window. You're not going to remember because it's so stressful when you have 50 people staring at you. But what you should try and remember is this: go do it anyway. Just go and do it until it becomes comfortable. Go and do it until it's sort of a second nature. Go and do it so that overcoming fear becomes second nature, because you're always going to have stage fright. Even if you learn how to do it in a spin class, if you learn how to do it in a boxing class, if you learn how to do it in a high intensity interval class, you're still probably going to get nervous if you have to get up, stand up and talk in a restaurant in front of random people. Okay, so you have this fear all the time, but you have to raise that fear with another fear. You beat fear with more fear. And that doesn't mean living your life in a state of fear. That actually means living your life in a state of super confidence, because you'll only realize this when you try, that going and asking the girl out at the bar had really nothing to do with staying in a state of fear. It's a split-second decision, and you go and do it. And then when you get rejected, it's almost like a relief, a sigh of relief of either rejection or positive. Maybe she gives you a number. I'm using this as an example, but it's a split second. It's not living your life in a constant state of anxiety. It's overcoming anxiety in that moment, to remain in it, to stay fearful, and to wait and to wait and to wait until you make the decision. That is staying in a state of anxiety. So remove all that, raise your fear with another fear, and then constantly find the courage that you're looking for in your life to transform, to do anything, to overcome yourself. And in a way, what I would tell people is become the instructor that you really know you can become. Become the person that you really know you can become by removing fear from your life. I hope this video helps you guys. I will see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.